"The bank has a problem with your notary." The sentence came from a woman I had never met. She sat behind the bank's attorney with a gray folder open and a yellow pencil balanced across one finger. Her voice was calm. That made it worse. Across the aisle, my husband stopped tapping his wedding ring against the table. Nathan had spent the first hour telling the judge I was confused, medicated, and angry about a loan I had supposedly authorized. His lawyer had displayed my signature on a screen for everyone in the courtroom to study. It looked like mine. The notary seal looked real too. Nathan leaned toward his attorney and whispered something I could not hear. Then he glanced at me with the patient expression he had used during my rehabilitation, the one that made concern look identical to control. The judge looked toward the bank. "What problem?" The woman closed the folder. "My name is Julia Reyes. I oversee fraud at Chesapeake Federal. The acknowledgement on this mortgage says Commander Warren appeared before a Virginia notary on February 12th. Nathan's attorney nodded. "Correct." Julia looked at me. "Commander, where were you that day?" "Port Hueneme, California." Nathan laughed softly, as if distance were a detail I had invented that morning. His attorney stood. Memory is one of the issues before this court. I slipped my hand into my pocket and felt a brass key press against my palm. It belonged to my mother. It no longer opened my front door, but 11 weeks earlier it had opened the box holding the document Nathan thought he had replaced. Julia turned one page. We did not rely on her memory. Nathan stopped smiling. 11 weeks earlier, I believed the most dangerous thing in my home was my injured hip. Our house sat in Deep Creek on a street where every third mailbox leaned toward the road. My mother bought it after her divorce, when I was 14 and still believed adults could fix anything with coffee and a legal pad. It was a brick house built in 1958. The floors creaked near the hallway closet. One kitchen cabinet refused to stay closed in humid weather. Whenever a northeast wind crossed the neighborhood, the brass mail slot in the front door made a quiet whistle. Nathan hated that sound. He stuffed foam around the edges twice. He suggested removing it when we changed the lock. My mother had polished that slot each Saturday, so I kept it. Nathan remodeled almost everything else. New windows. New counters. A slate patio he designed himself. He had good taste and the kind of confidence contractors listened to. Still, the deed carried only my name. My mother had left the house to me 6 years earlier. Nathan never complained. He only said things like, "I have put more into this place than anyone," or, "It is strange to improve something you do not own." I let the comments pass. At the kitchen table, our 12-year-old son, Caleb, built a bridge from basswood strips. Nathan stood beside him, explaining how triangles spread weight. "You cannot argue with load paths," he said. I smiled from the counter. I thought he was talking about the bridge. 2 years earlier, I had been injured during a Navy Reserve engineering mission after a hurricane damaged a fuel pier. There was no firefight. No dramatic rescue. Just salt air, bent steel, and a section of decking that failed while our team checked whether crews could cross. I heard the metal complain before it moved. People imagine structures collapse with a roar. Sometimes they begin with a sound no louder than a stubborn drawer opening. I shouted for the technicians behind me to clear the span. Then the decking dropped beneath my left foot. I fell less than 12 feet. It was enough. The impact fractured my pelvis and damaged nerves around my hip. I spent 9 days in a hospital, then months moving between a walker, crutches, and a cane. Nathan was there when I woke after surgery. He slept in a vinyl chair too small for him. He learned my medications. He argued with an insurance representative who delayed approval for a rehabilitation device. When I could not bend far enough to tie my shoes, he knelt and did it without embarrassing me. That part was real. People prefer simple stories. They want the person who harms you to have been cruel from the beginning. Nathan was not. He was patient and kind when I needed difficult decisions made. The problem was not that he helped me. The problem was that he became comfortable deciding what help meant. 6 weeks after surgery, Martin Shaw came to our house with a limited power of attorney. He sat at the dining table while Caleb did homework upstairs. Nathan made coffee no one drank. Martin reviewed the document. It allowed Nathan to pay household bills, speak with insurers, manage repairs, and sign forms for my rehabilitation. It did not allow him to sell, transfer, or mortgage real estate. Martin tapped that paragraph with his pen. Real property requires explicit authority, he said. This document does not give it. The power of attorney had an end date. It would expire at the end of February, or sooner if the listed rehabilitation matters were completed. I signed because sitting upright made my hip burn. I signed because telephone hold music felt like interrogation. Mostly I signed because Nathan was my husband. He carried the original into the study and scanned it. Nathan scanned everything. Tax returns. Appliance warranties. Restaurant receipts if he questioned the tip. The cloud does not lose things, he liked to say. I placed my copy inside the deed box my mother had kept beneath her bed. Its brass key hung behind a photograph of her. For months, the arrangement worked. Nathan paid bills on time. He organized statements and changed passwords because handling everything from one place was easier. I noticed the changes. I did not call them control. By the spring, I was back at my job in Norfolk, reviewing structures for an engineering firm. I returned to my reserve unit and still sometimes used a cane after long inspections. Recovery did not restore the body I had before the fall. Mornings tightened my hip. Airports could leave my leg numb. After a 3-hour meeting, I needed seconds before standing. None of that made me confused. None of it stopped me from working. At home, Nathan continued paying the mortgage, taxes, utilities, and insurance. There was a practical reason. He had the passwords. He knew whom to call. I was busy. He was better with money. That part was not true. Nathan was better at making money sound temporary. He had started Harbor Point Development with 2 partners, buying properties and converting them into apartments. The company did well. He knew lenders, inspectors, brokers, and contractors across Hampton Roads. Caleb adored him. Nathan coached baseball and made pancakes shaped like states on Sunday mornings. Virginia was easy. Florida always lost its panhandle. I loved those mornings enough to avoid examining the rest. While replacing a porch light, Nathan said, "I have rebuilt half this house and I am still a guest." I told him he was not. I did not say his name was absent from the deed. The mail slot whistled that night. Nathan sealed it. By morning, the sound was gone. I mistook silence for repair. Harbor Point had not failed all at once. That was how Nathan explained it later, after every number had acquired a date and every promise had acquired a signature. The project was a converted warehouse near the river, 32 apartments with exposed brick and views Nathan said would sell themselves. The first budget was $6 million. Then came rotten beams, contaminated soil, and a subcontractor who disappeared after taking an advance. By January, Harbor Point was $460,000 short. The lender gave Nathan 60 days to replace the missing equity or lose control of the project. His partners had stopped answering late-night calls. Nathan did not tell me any of that. Instead, he brought home glossy renderings and talked about rooftop lights, river views, and a waiting list that did not exist. He had always been good at speaking about the future as though it had already signed a contract. At a meeting downtown, one lender asked what additional collateral he could offer. Nathan opened a folder containing an appraisal estimate for my house. He did not present it as a private family sacrifice. He called the equity unused capital and told the lender my approval would be routine because he already managed our household finances. The lender wrote it down. Nathan was willing to claim my house in front of anyone who could fund him. He only hid that claim from me. He knew the equity. He knew the property was free of liens. He knew the deed carried only my name. He also knew I would say no. Not because I wanted his business to fail, but because my mother had spent 27 years paying for that house after my father left. Nathan studied the appraisal longer than anyone else. Then he asked how quickly a bridge loan could close. The appraisal happened on a Thursday afternoon while I was at work. Caleb was building his bridge model in the dining room. He photographed each stage because his teacher wanted proof that parents had not assembled it. In one picture, 3 basswood trusses lay beside a bottle of glue. Through the window behind them, a man in a blue jacket held a measuring wheel against our house. I saw the photograph that evening and asked Nathan who the man was. Insurance inspection, he said without looking up. They needed updated measurements after the patio work. That answer made sense because Nathan had handled our insurance since my surgery. Caleb asked whether he should delete the picture before uploading his school presentation. Nathan looked at it. "Do not put strangers online," he said. "Crop him out." Caleb nodded. He trusted rules when adults gave them a reason. I watched Nathan help him adjust the frame. His voice was patient. His hand rested on Caleb's shoulder. Nothing in that kitchen looked like a crime being prepared. Later, Nathan asked whether my reserve training dates in California were confirmed. I said I would leave on the 8th and return on the 20th. He asked whether I could postpone. No. The course runs once a year. He smiled, but disappointment tightened his mouth. That night, Caleb uploaded the cropped photograph. The original remained in our family cloud account, carrying the date, location, and the appraiser Nathan would later claim had never entered our yard. I flew to California on a Sunday with my cane strapped beside my carry-on and a folder of engineering notes under my arm. Port Unum smelled like salt, diesel, and sun-warmed concrete. The course covered expeditionary construction, damage assessment, and the kind of decisions people notice only when they are wrong. Each morning began with muster. Each building required badge access. Travel orders placed me in California, but those systems recorded whether I reported. At the time, none of that seemed important. Nathan called every evening. He asked about my hip, reminded me to take medication, and sent pictures of Caleb eating cereal over the sink. On the 4th night, he said a title company had called about a property record. What property? Our house. Probably a database update. I was reviewing load calculations and did not ask another question. The next day, in Virginia, a woman named Carol Vance stamped a document saying I had appeared before her. The document granted Nathan authority to mortgage my home. A loan officer called the number listed for me. The call reached Harbor Point's office, where an employee confirmed that Mrs. Warren was traveling and had authorized her husband to finish the closing. Nathan signed the papers. $525,000 was released. $460,000 went into Harbor Point. The rest covered fees, overdue liens, and closing costs. That evening, Nathan called me from Caleb's baseball practice. His voice sounded lighter than it had in months. The email arrived 11 days after I came home. I was in the kitchen, waiting for coffee, when my insurance company thanked me for adding Chesapeake Federal as a mortgagee. I read the sentence twice. Then I opened the endorsement and saw a loan number I did not recognize. Nathan was in the garage sorting baseball equipment. I carried my phone to him. "What is this?" He glanced at the screen and kept winding a strap around a bat bag. "The refinance." "We do not have a refinance." "We talked about it." "No, we did not." His hands stopped. "You were still taking medication." "We discussed using the house to consolidate things." The medication had made me tired. Once, during my first week home, I had forgotten whether I had taken a dose. Nathan remembered because he labeled the bottles afterward. He used one true memory to make me question every memory around it. "How much?" "It is temporary." "That is not a number." He exhaled and looked toward the house. "Keep your voice down. Caleb is home." I had not raised it. Nathan said the project needed short-term liquidity. He said the loan would be repaid after the first units sold. He said he had protected us from a larger loss. He did not apologize for using the house. He spoke as if its equity had been waiting for him to notice it. Then he changed the room with 5 words. "You signed it, Elise." I looked at the signature on my phone. For one frightened moment, I wondered whether paper remembered me better than I remembered myself that morning. That night, after Nathan went to bed, the wind returned. The brass mail slot gave one thin whistle through the foam he had pressed around it. I stood in the hallway listening to a sound he believed he had removed. Then I took my mother's key from behind her photograph. The deed box was beneath blankets in the closet. The lock resisted once, then opened. Inside were the deed, my mother's death certificate, tax records, and the limited power of attorney Martin had prepared after my surgery. I read it at the dining table beneath the light Nathan had installed. The language was plain. Nathan could pay household expenses. He could communicate with insurers. He could sign rehabilitation forms. He could not sell, transfer, pledge, or mortgage real property. The authority ended the previous February. I read those paragraphs 3 times. For most of the evening, I had feared I had forgotten something. That fear disappeared. What replaced it was colder. Nathan had not misunderstood the document. He had needed a different one. I photographed every page without removing the staples. Then I placed the original inside the box and locked it. The house remained quiet. For the first time, I understood that quiet and safety were not the same. Maya Chen's office was above a bakery. By 8, the hallway smelled like sugar and coffee. She listened without interrupting while I described the loan, the signature, and Nathan's claim that medication had affected my memory. Then she divided a legal pad into 2 columns. On the left she wrote, "What they can prove." On the right, "What they want you to fear." The right column filled first. Confusion. Pain medication. Marriage. Shared finances. A signature that resembled mine. The left held fewer words. Original power of attorney. Expiration date. California orders. Unknown notary. Unrecognized loan. I told Maya I wanted to confront Nathan before he moved more money. "No," she said. It was her first word in several minutes. "If he altered a document, your anger will not preserve it." She explained what I could do legally and what I should not do. I was not to access his private accounts, copy his phone, delete files, or threaten anyone connected to the closing. A document can look valid and still grant no authority for the act it was used to perform, she said. But we need the history, not just the appearance. I studied the columns. For years I had treated confrontation as danger. Maya treated procedure as shelter. By noon that day, notices were moving. Maya revoked any authority Nathan claimed under the power of attorney. She notified the bank, title company, insurer, and Martin Shaw. Another letter ordered Harbor Point to preserve emails, cloud files, closing records, drafts, and metadata. The bank froze the undisbursed loan funds. It was less than I hoped. Most of the money was already gone. $460,000 had entered Harbor Point's operating account. Some had paid contractors. Some had covered overdue liens. The rest had moved through transfers a forensic accountant would need to trace. I sat beside Maya's assistant while we requested a certified copy of the recorded mortgage and deed of trust. Every step felt smaller than the harm. One letter. One request. One account hold. Military work had taught me emergencies rarely end with one heroic decision. They end through checklists followed while frightened people wish someone would skip ahead. Nathan called 6 times. I did not answer. He texted that freezing the funds could destroy the project. Then he wrote Caleb would lose everything because I was overreacting. Maya read the messages. "Do not respond to the accusation," she said. "Respond only to logistics." So I wrote Caleb will be home by 6. Nothing else. The certified mortgage arrived the next morning. My name appeared on 14 pages. The signature was convincing. Whoever produced it had copied the upward stroke in my last name and the break in my first name. The acknowledgement page carried Carol Vance's seal. It stated that I had personally appeared before her in Virginia on February 12th. I opened my calendar. That morning I had attended muster at Port Hueneme. I had entered a secured classroom at 7:41. I had paid for lunch. That evening I had charged dinner to my travel card. I knew where I had been. The discovery did not feel like relief. A forged signature can be explained as a clerical error, a scanned page, or a misunderstanding between spouses. A false personal appearance required someone to create a moment that never happened. I called Maya. I was in California. "I know," she said. "Now we prove it with records that do not belong to you." She requested my orders, muster documentation, access logs, travel authorization voucher, and the title company's verification records. I looked again at the notary seal. Until that moment, I had hoped Nathan had crossed one line in panic. The page before me told me he had built a road. Nathan came home after 7. He set his keys on the counter. Caleb was upstairs working on the bridge presentation. Nathan held the notice. You filed a fraud claim against your husband. I reported a loan I did not authorize. You are going to bankrupt us. How was the power of attorney changed? You signed an amendment. Where? At home. Who notarized it? He looked toward the ceiling, listening for Caleb. This is what I was worried about. You forget conversations, then decide everyone else is lying. I felt the old instinct to lower the temperature. Instead, I asked, did you alter the document? Nathan stepped closer but did not touch me. Let the project close. The first units sell this summer. The loan disappears, and Caleb never learns his mother tried to destroy his father. There it was. Not an answer. A deadline disguised as forgiveness. I said all communication about the loan goes through Maya. He stared as if I had changed languages. 2 days later, a process server arrived at my office. Nathan had filed for custody, exclusive use of our house, and an evaluation of my mental capacity. He did not offer an explanation. He offered the court a version of me that could not object. Nathan's petition arrived in an envelope with my name printed in a font that looked polite. He asked for primary custody of Caleb, exclusive use of the house, and an evaluation of my mental capacity. The filing described my cane as a mobility impairment, my medication log as evidence of dependence, and my fraud report as a paranoid reaction to a financial decision I had forgotten. One paragraph said Nathan had become the functional parent during my recovery. That phrase stayed with me. It took a period when I had trusted him to help and converted it into proof that I had never resumed control. Maya read the petition twice. He is not defending the loan, she said. He is attacking your ability to challenge it. Nathan claimed Caleb needed stability. He said my military travel disrupted routines, and that my investigation of the mortgage had created emotional danger in the home. He did not mention that he had borrowed against the home without permission. He did not mention the altered power of attorney. He presented my reaction to betrayal as evidence that I was unstable enough to be betrayed safely. That was the point where something in me stopped negotiating. Until then, part of me believed Nathan might admit what he had done if I gave him a path that did not humiliate him. The petition closed that path. He was no longer trying to hide the transaction. He was trying to make me incapable of objecting to it. Caleb found me at the table with the petition face down. Am I moving? He asked. Children notice paper before adults notice fear. No decision has been made. Dad said you might take me to California. I am not taking you anywhere without telling you. He studied my face, then glanced toward the stairs. Is he still coming to robotics night? I turned the petition face down before I answered. Caleb did not want a ruling. He wanted both parents in the gym while his bridge held a bucket of washers. I do not know, I said. But this is not a test where you prove whom you love. He sat across from me. Do I have to tell the judge who I want? No. Maya had requested a guardian ad litem, an attorney to protect Caleb. She would speak with him away from us, review records, and tell the court what caused least harm. I would not prepare Caleb. I would not ask what Nathan had told him. I would not turn my son into evidence. That restraint cost more than people imagine. Every parent in a custody case wants to ask the question that might save them. What did he say? What did you see? Who do you believe? I asked none. Caleb picked up a strip of basswood. Dad says bridges fail where people cannot see. Sometimes. He rotated the wood. Does that mean nobody knew? I looked at the petition. Sometimes somebody knew and hoped it would hold anyway. Nathan submitted my rehabilitation records the following week. He included photographs of my cane beside the door and pages from the medication log I had kept after surgery. One entry said I had felt disoriented after taking a new dose. His attorney underlined that sentence. The entry was 18 months old. Doctor. Nia Patel reviewed the complete file in an examination room while rain struck the window. She asked me to walk, sit, stand, explain my medication schedule, and describe what I did when pain affected concentration. Then she turned to the page Nathan had selected. You called the clinic that afternoon, she said. Yes. You stopped driving until the dose was changed. Yes. You asked your husband to manage the evening medication because you recognized the side effect. Yes. She placed the record flat. Using an adaptation correctly is evidence of judgment, not evidence that judgment is gone. Nathan's filing had removed the next line from the note. Symptoms resolved after dosage adjustment. Doctor. Patel also reviewed my employment evaluations, reserve fitness documentation, and medical restrictions. I could not run. I should not climb unsecured ladders. I needed breaks after prolonged standing. None of those limits affected my ability to parent. Before I left, Doctor. Patel returned my cane. People confuse independence with never needing assistance, she said. That is not how functioning works. In the parking lot, I understood Nathan's strategy. He did not need to invent every weakness. He only needed to remove the decisions surrounding it. Mediation took place in a windowless conference room. Nathan arrived in a navy suit and placed his phone beside a folder. He looked rested. His proposal gave me limited access to the house, alternating weekends with Caleb, and a share of Harbor Point's profit after the loan was repaid. In exchange, I would withdraw the fraud claim and agree Nathan had acted with my consent. Maya read without expression. Nathan watched me. Elise can calculate the load on a pier, he said, but she cannot manage her own house anymore. The mediator shifted. I felt heat rise behind my eyes, but anger was what Nathan expected. If I raised my voice, he would call it instability. If I explained my career, he would call it pride. So I asked one question. When does your lender's deadline expire? Nathan's face changed before his lawyer answered. Maya closed the folder. That was why he needed an agreement quickly. The custody filing was pressure and a clock. Nathan leaned forward. You are gambling Caleb's future to prove a point. No, I said. I am refusing to sign your version of the past. He called the proposal generous. He said judges preferred compromise. He reminded me court could expose my medical history. I slid the papers back. No. Nathan mistook the answer for emotion. Maya did not. In the elevator, she checked the date. He needs you frightened before the bank finishes looking. For the first time, time was no longer working for him. Caleb found the original photograph while looking for a missing slide. He was sitting on the living room floor with his laptop open and 3 bridge models arranged around him like failed experiments. Mom, was this the insurance guy? The image showed the blue jacket, measuring wheel, and the side of our house. The date in the corner was January 15th, nearly a month before Nathan claimed the loan had become an emergency. I kept my voice neutral. Where did you find it? The family cloud. Dad told me to crop him out. Caleb looked worried, as if obeying that instruction had made him responsible for whatever came next. You did nothing wrong. I sent the image to Maya without asking Caleb another question about his father. A forensic technician later preserved the original file, including location data and the sequence of images taken before and after it. The appraiser appeared in 4 photographs, moving from the backyard to the foundation wall. The title company's records showed the appraisal order had come from Harbor Point. Nathan had not rushed into the mortgage after a sudden crisis. He had arranged access to the property weeks earlier. Caleb watched me close the laptop. Is the picture bad? No, I said. It is honest. Caleb's shoulders loosened. I closed the laptop before he could see my hand tighten around the brass key. Lieutenant Commander Adrian Cole refused to write a character letter. That was why Maya trusted him. I can tell the court she is responsible, he said. That would be my opinion. You need records. Adrian served as the administrative officer for my reserve unit. He knew which systems documented assignment, travel, attendance, and entry to controlled spaces. Orders show where a sailor was assigned, he said. Muster and access records show where she actually reported. The records arrived through the proper request. My orders placed me at Port Hunim from February 8th through February 20th. Morning muster showed me present on the 12th. Badge logs recorded my entry into the engineering training facility at 7:41 and my exit after 5. My government travel card showed lunch near the base and dinner in Oxnard. None of the documents praised me. That was their strength. They did not say I was brave, stable, or trustworthy. They said I was in California while Carol Vance claimed to watch me sign papers in Virginia. Nathan's attorney objected that access records could be incomplete. Adrian answered with the patience of someone explaining weather to a window. One record can be wrong. 5 independent systems producing the same location require a different explanation. Our case finally had distance measured in clear, hard, independent evidence. The cloud archive was much harder. Nathan's company argued its records contained confidential investor information. Maya requested only files connected to my name, the house, the power of attorney, and the closing. A judge ordered preservation before production was decided. The forensic vendor found 3 versions of the document. The first was Martin's limited power of attorney. The second contained a new page granting authority over real estate. The third had my copied signature beneath language I had never seen. The versions had not replaced one another cleanly. Nathan's habit of scanning everything had created a history. The original appeared in Harbor Point's system 10 months before the amendment. The amendment was uploaded from Nathan's office account 6 days before I left for California. The file name contained his initials. That did not prove he wrote it. Maya reminded me suspicion was not intent. Then the vendor recovered a deleted folder labeled Closing Support. Inside were blank acknowledgement forms, samples of my signature, and a draft email addressed to Carol Vance. The email had never been sent from that account. Someone could have copied it. Someone could have used Nathan's computer. Each answer opened another excuse. But the document Nathan claimed I signed at home existed before the date he said we discussed it. The lie had acquired a timestamp. Julia Reyes interviewed me privately 2 weeks before the hearing. She did not begin with the signature. She began with a telephone number. Is this yours? The number belonged to Harbor Point's front desk. No. It appears in the verification field as your preferred contact. I had never used that number. Julia circled the number with a yellow pencil. Then she turned to another loan file. The same number appeared beside another customer's name. She did not explain the second file. I cannot discuss another account, she said. I can tell you this number should not be attached to either one. The log showed a loan officer called that line. A Harbor Point employee confirmed I was traveling and had authorized Nathan to complete the transaction. No one had spoken with me. Julia asked whether I knew Carol Vance. I did not. She asked whether I had ever paid Carol or hired her. I had not. Julia closed the folder. A signature is a picture, she said. An audit trail is a history. At the door, she added that the bank's review had expanded. I asked what that meant. It means your mortgage may not be the only document with impossible geography. That was all she would say. Part of the case had moved beyond anything Nathan or I controlled. Leah called me from the driveway on a rainy evening. Nathan's sister had invested $70,000 in Harbor Point. I had assumed she knew more than I did. She stayed in her car until I stepped outside. I brought something, she said. Her hands shook when she passed me an investor update dated January 29th. It said additional collateral was secured and owner approval was complete. My supposed signature was dated February 12th. Leah stared through the windshield. Nathan told us you wanted the project protected because Caleb would inherit part of it. I asked whether she had seen the mortgage. No. I believed him. She apologized before every sentence, as if politeness could reduce what she had financed. The update included a funding date, lender conditions, and a line stating any owner challenge would be addressed through a competency filing under review. Maya read that line twice. Nathan's custody petition had not been invented after I reported the fraud. The idea existed before the loan closed. Leah asked whether she would lose her savings. I did not promise otherwise. She was still Nathan's sister, an investor, and a possible witness. I did not know which role mattered most. But one fact was absolutely clear. Nathan had sold my consent to other people before he finished manufacturing it. The hearing resumed with Julia Reyes standing again. The bank has a problem with your notary, she repeated. Nathan's attorney rose. The validity of the acknowledgement is not before the court today. Maya did not move. It is before the court because Mr. Warren asks for exclusive use of a house secured by a loan my client says was fabricated. He also asks this court to treat her objection as evidence of incapacity. The judge looked toward the bank's counsel. Continue. Julia slowly opened the folder. Nathan's wedding ring remained still against the table. For weeks, he had described the dispute as a confused wife objecting to a difficult financial decision. That version depended on one assumption. The papers had to be genuine enough that my memory became the only uncertain thing in the room. Julia did not reveal her finding yet. Instead, Maya called Martin Shaw, the attorney who had prepared the original power of attorney after my surgery. Nathan watched him approach the witness chair. Martin carried no box and no sealed military file. He brought a thin folder and the record showing when the document had been drafted, signed, scanned, and closed. The judge asked whether he recognized the document displayed by Nathan's attorney. Martin adjusted his glasses. I recognized the first 6 pages, he said. I did not prepare the 7th. Martin read the original limitations aloud. The power of attorney allowed Nathan to pay utilities, communicate with insurers, arrange repairs, and sign rehabilitation forms. It expressly excluded selling, transferring, pledging, or mortgaging real property. It also expired at the end of the previous February. Nathan's attorney displayed the additional page. Martin studied it. The typeface is similar, he said. The spacing is not. My office numbers amendment pages separately. This page has no document identifier, no client acknowledgement, and no record in our system. Could Mrs. Warren have signed a separate amendment at home? She could sign anything presented to her. That would not make it an amendment prepared or witnessed by my office. Nathan leaned toward his attorney. His smile had not disappeared, but it had become something he had to hold in place. The attorney argued that spouses often modified financial arrangements informally. Martin answered, informal permission is not the same as authority to encumber separately owned real estate. Maya placed the deed into evidence. My name stood alone. Then, she displayed the cloud timestamps showing the new page had been uploaded from Harbor Point before Nathan claimed we discussed it. He objected that another employee could have used his account. The judge allowed the question to remain open. The first support beneath Nathan's story had cracked. It had not fallen completely yet. Lieutenant Commander Adrian Cole took the witness chair after lunch. He wore a civilian suit. No ribbons. No uniform. Nothing in his appearance invited the courtroom to confuse rank with truth. Maya asked where I had been on February 12th. Port Hueneme, California. Nathan's attorney stood. Based on orders supplied by Commander Warren. Based on 5 systems maintained for different purposes. Adrian identified my travel orders. Morning muster, badge access, government travel card records, and lodging documentation. Each placed me in California on the day Carol Vance claimed I appeared before her in Virginia. The attorney suggested someone else might have used my badge. Adrian nodded. Then someone else also answered muster in person, attended a controlled course under her name, used her travel card, entered her hotel room, and appeared on facility security video. The attorney removed his glasses. He requested a short recess. The judge denied it until the exhibit was admitted. Adrian authenticated each record without praising me once. That mattered. Nathan had spent weeks turning every defense into a character contest. Adrian gave the court no character to debate, only clear documented geography instead. When the last timestamp appeared on the screen, Nathan stopped looking at his attorney. He looked down at the mortgage. For the first time, the signature no longer made me seem forgetful. It made the document impossible. Julia returned calmly to the stand. She placed 3 records on the screen. Martin's original power of attorney. My Port Hueneme access log. The bank's verification call to Harbor Point. Page 7 was never prepared by her attorney, she said. Commander Warren was in California, and no bank employee ever spoke with her. Nathan's ring touched the table once. In the silence that followed, the 3 records did not look separate anymore. They looked like one decision made 3 times. Replace my authority, replace my location, replace my voice. She began with the telephone number listed as my preferred contact. Harbor Point's front desk had received the bank's verification call. An employee there confirmed my supposed authorization. She explained that the same number appeared in another loan file linked to Carol Vance. Nathan's attorney objected to discussing another customer. Julia quietly agreed not to identify the borrower by name. The second file also contains a personal appearance that could not have occurred, she said. The judge asked why. The signer was hospitalized in another state. Julia placed a transaction record on the screen. Harbor Point had paid Carol Vance $2,800 3 days before my closing. The payment was labeled document consulting. The bank found no invoice, contract, or legitimate service. Nathan's hand flattened beside his wedding ring. The heating vent clicked off, and the silence widened. Julia showed how my contact information had been replaced during manual verification. The change came from an address associated with Harbor Point. The confirmation call was routed to that office. A Harbor Point investor seated behind Nathan stood and left. Nathan watched him go. Maya asked whether the bank considered the problem a clerical mistake. Julia looked at the altered contact field, impossible notarization and payment. No, she said. Clerical mistakes do not usually invoice themselves. Maya saved the cloud archive for last. The forensic examiner authenticated 3 versions of the power of attorney. The original. The page granting real estate authority. The final packet carrying my copied signature. Then she opened the deleted folder called Closing Support. Signature samples appeared first. Blank acknowledgement forms followed. The final document was an internal memo drafted before the mortgage closed. Maya read one line. If owner resistance continues, the pending competency filing should prevent unilateral cancellation. Nathan's attorney stood so quickly his chair rolled backward. He asked for a recess. The judge granted 5. Nathan stayed seated, both hands flat on the table while his lawyer spoke near his ear. He never looked toward the gallery, where Leah waited with her investor update. When court resumed, Leah's document was admitted. It told investors that owner approval was complete on January 29th. My supposed signature was dated February 12th. The custody strategy had not followed my fraud report. It had been waiting for it. Maya asked Nathan one question. When did protecting your son require declaring his mother incompetent before she discovered the loan? His attorney objected. Nathan looked toward the doors instead of answering. That movement told me more than any confession. He had not used the mortgage to save our family. He had used our family to keep the mortgage alive. The judge allowed me one brief statement. I looked at Nathan. You were authorized to help me, I said. You were never authorized to become me. I sat down. There was no applause. Real courtrooms do not behave like theaters, and relief rarely arrives as noise. The judge denied Nathan's request for exclusive use of the house. She ordered that Caleb remain primarily with me while the custody evaluation continued, with a structured parenting schedule for Nathan and communication through a monitored application. She prohibited either of us from transferring, refinancing, or encumbering the property. A forensic accounting was ordered. The bank and title company were directed to preserve all records. Documents concerning the altered power of attorney, notary, and verification process would be forwarded to authorities. The judge did not declare Nathan guilty of a crime. That was not the hearing's purpose. She did say his effort to characterize my fraud report as incapacity had damaged his credibility. Nathan slowly closed his eyes once. He did not apologize. He did not collapse. He gathered his papers as if organization could restore the order he had lost. Maya touched my sleeve. We had won the hearing. But Caleb would wake the next morning loving his father. No temporary order could tell a 12-year-old where to place that love after trust had been removed beneath it. The consequences did not arrive together. 2 days after the hearing, Harbor Point's investors removed Nathan from management. The bank kept the disputed lien frozen while its attorneys reviewed the closing. The title company opened its own investigation. Maya warned me that none of those actions guaranteed the mortgage would disappear. Procedure is not mercy, she said. It is sequence. On October 3rd, the title insurer filed an action to void the lien for $525,000. Chesapeake Federal recovered $64,000 that had not yet cleared Harbor Point's accounts. The investor's decision removing Nathan from management became effective that same week, and the state licensing board opened a formal fraud inquiry under his name. The criminal referral remained pending, but the mortgage he had used to control my house could no longer be enforced while the case was under review. Nathan moved into a furnished apartment near Caleb's school. He took only clothes, his laptop, and the baseball equipment from the garage. He left the slate patio, the remodeled kitchen, and every improvement he had once described as proof that the house belonged partly to him. No officers arrived at the courthouse. No handcuffs appeared. A forensic accountant began tracing the loan through Harbor Point, and the licensing board requested records concerning Nathan's disclosures to investors. I did not celebrate. Victory looked smaller in daylight. It looked like changing passwords, copying statements, meeting appraisers, and explaining to utility companies that Nathan no longer had authority to alter accounts. At night, the mail slot whistled again. I removed the foam Nathan had pressed around it with his own hands. The sound was imperfect, thin, and sometimes annoying. I let it remain in place that night. Caleb's first visit with Nathan happened the following Saturday. The parenting application recorded the pickup time, location, and every message between us. Nathan arrived 7 minutes early and waited in his car. Caleb stood in the hallway with his robotic shirt folded over one arm. "Is Dad a bad person?" he asked. I had prepared for questions about court. I had not prepared for that one. "Your father did something serious," I said. "He lied, and he used things that belonged to me without permission. He has to answer for that." "That is not what I asked." "I know." He looked toward the window. "Can I still love him?" The question made the room feel smaller. "Yes." "Does that mean I am on his side?" "No. Loving somebody does not require agreeing with what they did." Caleb nodded, but he did not look relieved. Children understand permission faster than contradiction. Nathan came to robotics night 3 weeks later. He stood at the opposite end of the gym. We did not speak. Caleb's bridge held 140 pounds before a joint split near the center. He stared at the broken truss. Then he said the load found the weak place. I looked across the gym at Nathan. It usually does. Leah called again after the investors froze distributions. Her $70,000 represented 11 years of savings. She had planned to use it for a down payment on a dental practice. Nathan had told her the house made the project safe. Maya explained that Leah's investor update could strengthen our case, but the same document might also help her prove she had been misled. I could have kept it within our litigation file until settlement. Nathan's attorney wanted leverage. So did mine. For one afternoon, the power to make someone else wait felt almost like justice. Then I remembered Leah sitting in her car, apologizing for believing her brother. I authorized Maya to provide the records Leah needed for her claim, limited to the investor statements, timeline, and evidence that my approval had been fabricated. I did not forgive Nathan by helping her. I refused to let him decide who else had to lose everything. Months later, Leah recovered part of her investment through restructuring. Not all of it. Real consequences rarely return people to the place they stood before harm. Leah sent me a note. "You did not owe me this." She was right. Protection is not always a debt. Sometimes it is simply the first decision you make after getting your authority back. Caleb and I changed the locks in October. He read the instructions while I removed the deadbolt. My hip ached, so we traded places halfway through. "What about Grandma's key?" he asked. "It has not opened this door for years." "Then why keep it?" I looked at the brass key. Because opening something is not the only way an object can matter. We placed it in a shadow box beside my mother's photograph and the deed. The power of attorney went into Maya's archive, where it could remain evidence instead of permission. Nathan continued seeing Caleb. Some visits went well. Others ended early. He apologized to our son, but never found an apology without an explanation for himself. I stopped waiting. The mortgage dispute continued. The divorce became final. My house remained mine, though ownership no longer felt like the greatest victory. Nathan could no longer define help, memory, or consent for me. A cold wind crossed Deep Creek. The mail slot whistled indoors. Caleb asked whether we should replace it. No, I said. It still works. Not every closed door is revenge. Sometimes it is the first time the person inside gets to decide who has a key. Maybe no one forged your signature. Maybe they only kept telling you that your memory was unreliable, your boundaries were cruel, or your gratitude should last forever. Control does not always announce itself by taking a house. Sometimes it begins by convincing you that needing help once means surrendering authority permanently. You are allowed to examine the document. You are allowed to check the date. You are allowed to ask where you supposedly stood when someone claims you agreed. And when the answer does not exist, you are allowed to trust the record more than the person demanding your silence. If you have rebuilt a boundary someone called selfish, you know how quiet courage can be. If someone you know is rebuilding that kind of boundary, share this story with them. Quiet courage is not the absence of fear. Sometimes it is checking where you signed and discovering you were never there.